Well, happy middle of the week, everybody. It's boy, what a beautiful day! Beautiful day it has turned out to be. I know I got out to work, going to work this morning, and thought I was late. It was so bright and sunny, but but it's a beautiful day out there, and I hope you've had a great start to your week and um, have a great plan for the remainder of your week. And I hope that your weekend includes coming into church on Sunday morning. We would love to see you in person. We know virtual option is there, but boy, if you can be present in person on Sunday, I know that God will bless you for it. So we're not finishing. We're moving on to our next hero of faith. I am learning so much from this study, and it's challenging me, it's pushing me to grow, and I hope that it's doing the same for you. And so this is not going to be an exception for me. I know just in finishing up today, boy, it's really challenged me. Really helped clarify some things for me. And so we're just going to dive right in. So our hero of faith for this week is Joseph. He is the son of Isaac and the grandson of Abraham. And we're going to be in Hebrews 11, verse 22. Hebrews 11:22 says this: "It was by faith that Joseph, when he was about to die, said confidently that the people of Israel would leave Egypt. He even commanded them to take his bones with them when they left." So, in order to understand that verse, we've got to kind of some of my former pastors would say we have to unbox this just a little bit, and to do that, we need to go to Genesis chapters 36 through 50. It covers the last 14 chapters of the book of Genesis. And no, I'm not going to read it to you, but I am going to recover and go over the life of Joseph with you. So I've kind of bulleted a list here, and I'm just going to kind of read through it. So Joseph was a favored son of Isaac. He made him the coat of many colors. God gave Joseph dreams about his future. And as a result, his brothers hated him for it, to the point that his brothers faked his death and sold him into slavery. While he was in slavery in Egypt, he found favor in the house of Potiphar, which was a leader in Egypt. But as a result of finding favor, he was falsely accused of sexual assault by Potiphar's wife, and he was thrown into prison. And so, can you imagine being in prison for something you didn't do? And so, when he was in prison, he found favor with the people there, and he was given leadership positions there in prison. And while he was there, he interpreted dreams for specifically the king's cupbearer and the baker who had been thrown in prison. And both of those dreams came true. And so he had told, I believe it was the cupbearer, or he told both of them, but cupbearer was the one that ended up still living, that to not forget about him, to remember him, and to help get him out of prison. But he was forgotten about. The cupbearer forgot about him until one day the king had a dream. And so the cupbearer did remember Joseph in prison. And he interpreted Pharaoh's dreams. And as a result of interpreting Pharaoh's dreams, Pharaoh put him in charge of everything in Egypt. He was second in command in all of Egypt to help them through the famine. And his interpretations of the dreams did come to pass. There were 7 years of plenty, then 7 years of famine. And then the dreams that God gave him as a young boy or man came to pass when his brothers came and kneeled and bowed before him in Egypt. And so Joseph's life, and that's just a short snippet of everything that Joseph had gone through. So Joseph's life was kind of a roller coaster. It's full of its ups and downs. It seems like he had it made, and then he was knocked down. But he always got back up. You know, the philosopher Confucius says that our greatest glory is not in never falling, but in rising every time we fall. So at any point in his life, Joseph could have decided, I'm just going to quit. I'm just going to give up. It's just one thing after another. And guys, have you been there before? Where you just can't like every time you get up, you get knocked right back down. I think we all go through seasons of that in our life at one point or another, or sometimes many times in our lives. The key there is getting back up when we fall, just like Joseph did. And so, what can we learn about Joseph's faith? And really, there's just one takeaway that I want to take away. There's many more, I'm sure, but this is the one takeaway that I want us to understand from Joseph's faith. Faith builds upon faith, builds upon faith, builds upon faith. So let's go to this scenario. When the acorns start to fall from the trees, the squirrels get busy gathering those acorns. They'll eat some and they store the rest. They know that those acorns are going to help them survive the winter. Yes, they do provide sustenance as they're gathering them, but they also store them away later for a later time. And the same goes for us. We build our faith on a daily basis through many different ways. We build our faith through our prayers, getting in God's Word, our worship, through the daily trials that we go to. And that in turn helps us build our spiritual muscles, our spiritual stamina for the greater trials and tests that we will inevitably face in this life. So how did Joseph know that Israel was going to leave Egypt and that they could and would take his bones back there? How did he know? Well, he knew because he had seen God. His faith had been built to the point where he knew that God was going to keep his promises. As that timeline of things shows, every time he got knocked down, God would promote him, and God would use him to do great things. Even when he got knocked down again, God would raise him up again. So Joseph saw and knew the faithfulness of God over his lifetime. So in the end, Joseph knew that God had promised that the children of Israel would be back there, back in Israel. And so he trusted God, and he just told them, when you go, not if you go. He didn't say if you go back. He said, when you go back, take my bones with me and bury me there, because that's my homeland. So Joseph's faith was built upon his faith that was built upon his faith. I love what it says, the couple of verses here, Malachi 3 and 10. It says, bring all the tithes into the storehouse so there will be enough food in my temple. If you do, says the Lord of heaven's armies, I will open the windows of heaven for you. I'll pour out a blessing so great you won't have enough room to take it in. Try it. Put me to the test. What God is challenging us there, number one, he's telling us to tithe, to bring our tithe to him. But also what he's saying is, hey, this is my promise. He's saying, try me by doing what I've commanded and knowing that I'm going to bless you because of it. And so he's just saying, if you will honor me, guess what? I'm going to honor you. And that's my word. And he holds to his word. David, I think, put it best in Psalms 37:25. He said, I was young and now I'm old, yet I've never seen the righteous forsaken or a seed begging bread. David didn't just say that just because he was getting old and he thought he wanted to give a word of wisdom. David could say that because over the course of his life, God had provided for him. God had kept him. God had delivered him from situation after situation. God had forgiven him for his, David had sinned mightily, but God had forgiven him for that. And, he redeemed him from that. And so David saw, because he experienced the faithfulness of God. And because of that, his faith was built upon his faith, was built upon his faith. So it was just this stockpile of faith that these heroes of faith were building over their lives. And the same thing for us. If we've served God any length of time, God has been faithful to us. From the moment he saved us, God has been faithful to us in every situation. If I have seen God work in many of you guys' life, and I've just seen God's faithfulness to you, and just know that faithfulness, that faith that is built when you go through a situation or when God meets a need, that faith that is built in that situation becomes this bedrock, and you just continue to build the faith upon faith upon faith. And the more faith you have, the stronger the test you can withstand, and that builds more faith. And see, it's just this cycle of faith building and faith building and faith building until one day our faith becomes sight when we make it to heaven. And so, guys, I just want to encourage you today to reflect upon what God has done for you. Let that build your faith. Let that build up your muscles, and so that as you face the next trial, the next test that you have to go through, that faith that you're building is going to build upon more faith. It's going to build upon more faith to help you get through what you're going through, because God is there for us. And we know that because we've seen Him do it before. And because of that, we know He's going to do it again. And so there's an old hymn, I believe it's the Henson song, that says He'll do it again. If you'll just take a look at where you are now and where you've been. Well, hasn't He always come through for you? He's the same now as then. You may not know how, you may not know when, but He'll do it again. I love you guys. I hope you have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you in service on Sunday morning.